to, and there's still quite a large degree of fragmentation. There are still Android 1.5 products being sold at the moment. So it's a little tricky. Also in terms of the marketplace, the Android marketplace experience could be improved. It doesn't handle multiple currencies very well. If you publish an app in pound sterling, but you're in Germany and you look at the app, the price will be in pound sterling. It won't be in euros. And I think that's just a very tricky consumer experience. So I think Google will fix all of these issues, and we're really keen to get in there. But for now, we're just holding off. I suspect Android 3, which is due out early next year, might be the point at which they resolve all of these issues. It wouldn't surprise me. I know that a few tablet makers have just recently announced that they're delaying their plans for launching tablets until Android 3 is out. So, and part of that is to do with the marketplace experience. So, and then of course Windows 7, Windows Mobile 7 is out this week or next week. And I think Microsoft are going to produce a great product. Some of the early reports have been very positive. And really, this is kind of their last chance to get in the game. And they realize that. And they've put a lot of effort into the platform. So I wouldn't discount them at all. I think they'll come out with a great product. And if they can get the sales figures up, we'll be in there totally. The BlackBerry Playbook, which was announced last week, that's not out until second quarter of next year. So we'll evaluate that when it comes through. And we were very keen on Palm Pre, but we'll have to wait and see what Hewlett Packard do in terms of their tablet plans and whether we'll be a part of that. Although we are exclusively on Apple right now, that wasn't actually our intent. But the truth is, that's where the complete kind of holistic experience is, and that's where the market is right now. So, so that's where we are. So yeah, I mean, these are just a few ideas. I'm sure you will have a lot of other ideas, and I'd love to talk to you about them if you want to share them. There's you know, moving more into books about music rather than books containing music. I mean, there are loads of opportunities to have what we call a post-book. A post-book is that idea of, let's say you know, an encyclopedia. If you were to take an encyclopedia and make a digital book out of it, you wouldn't present it as a book. You would present it as a database, a way, and you'd provide all these great ways to navigate through that content, to interlink content, and so on. And once you've done that, you can't really take that content back into a book. You can't flatten it all out again. And I think, you know, that there are potentially, you know, rock biographies might be one of them, where, you know, for bands that have a long history with a lot of interconnecting parts, you might want to do something a bit more expressive, a bit deeper in terms of the way the user navigates through the content. It could even be completely non-linear. You could have, you know, let's say, okay, let's take the Beatles, for example. You could have a navigation where you have a map of the world. I mean, they did a lot of traveling, a lot of tours, and you could base a biography on a map of the world with a timeline along the bottom, and you go through the entire life cycle of the Beatles, and you see how they move around the country. They spend time in Germany, they go to Russia on tour, they go to America, and so on. And then you attach content to those different events and different pieces, and through that you then introduce audio clips, video clips, other bits and pieces. And I think, you know, the canvas that the iPad provides is I think, really key in that. I think the dimensions of the iPhone, yes, you could kind of squeeze it down and do something there, but I think it's really that sort of coffee table book with the iPad is where you could really do something fun. Yeah?
Can I just rewind a minute and a half?
Of course.
Before I forget. I don't understand why you say you can't, once you have the media in that form, you can't convert it to a book. And if you create a DTD and do it in XML, you can refer it anywhere you want.
What I mean is, once you've changed consumers' expectations, book is no longer satisfactory. That's what I mean. Once you've added all these extra experiences in, you've delighted the user in that way, and then you give them a choice. Do you want the iPad or the book? People that have enjoyed the iPad will probably go, well, actually, I prefer that. Yes, I'm not saying no longer do books.
Yeah.
I'm saying that there's a path, there's a way of interacting with the content that once you add that level of sophistication in, putting it back into a book seems like you're selling someone short.
For most purposes. Yeah.
For most purposes.
There are specialist purposes which I don't think that's true.
Okay. Love to know more about that. Yeah. So, as it stands right now, what we do at Enhanced Editions is we try and build everything in as much as we can in a sort of platform way. So, a book with a kind of user experience of Bunny Monroe is something that we can now do relatively easily. But we're constantly looking at opportunities to kind of innovate in different directions and do different kind of fun things. Yeah, the first time we do that, we like to take our time, just because we think it's worth it. So that's what I have to say really about books and music for now. And there's our website and our Twitter if you want to sign up. And yeah, it's
I have a couple of questions.
fantastic.
You talked about Apple approval, but
Yes.
How does it work with publisher and author approval? I mean, do you work relatively closely with publishers, or do you plan to?
Oh yes, we work absolutely with publishers. I mean, Cazenove was a key part of the approval process. Nick Cave saw the app, gave his approval. Authors are not always involved in the approval process. It really depends on the relationship between the author and the publisher. But yeah, it's very important to us that everyone really understands what's going to be on the App Store. When we submitted Bunny Monroe to the App Store, we had a nail-biting 6 weeks approval process, and we understand that it went quite high up the ladder because it was the first time anyone had done this kind of experience, and they decided that that was okay. It was a distinct enough product that they thought it was okay to exist. But yeah, the most terrifying 6 weeks of my life, I think it was. Nowadays, they approve things within 10 days. It's pretty straightforward. But any kind of new features that we do, we always try and pad that out as much as possible and tell clients to, if we can have a month for approval, that we always feel a lot calmer about that, because it gives us an opportunity to respond if there is a problem of some sort. We don't want things to be rejected by Apple the day before we're supposed to go live, because then we can't do anything.
And then just one other question. Are you sort of, at this point, focusing on pre-existing content and planning to continue to do that, or would you ever consider sort of, commissioning something with a publisher, like starting a project from scratch with a publisher, or?
Oh, well, we would much prefer to start from scratch on something, because I think it opens up the sort of creative channels a lot more. It allows us to do something a bit more interesting. A lot of our projects, unfortunately, involve the publisher going, okay, here's what we have, what can you do with it? And we do our best, but we often end up being quite constrained with how we can present it. But no, we'd love to brainstorm right at the beginning and think of something, really innovative. So yeah, we're all up for that. All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.